Good evening and welcome, councillors, executive leadership team, community members and council staff to tonight's special council meeting. My name is Councillor Leslie Hewitt and I'm the Mayor of the Hepburn Shire Council. We'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Jara people country, of which members and elders of the Dja Dja Wurrung community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries. On this land, the Jara people have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. As we're undertaking this meeting virtually, I will read on behalf of my councillor colleagues the councillor statement of commitment in order to prevent any audio feedback occurring. Statement of commitment. We, the councillors of Hepburn Shire, declare that we will undertake on every occasion to carry out our duties in the best interests of the community, and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of the Code of Good Governance so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of Hepburn Shire. Council continues to be guided by the government directives and wants to do the right thing for the health of our community through this COVID-19 pandemic. In line with these directives, the public are unable to attend this meeting in person, and this meeting is being held completely virtually to protect the health and well-being of each other and the community. In the spirit of open, transparent and accountable governance, this special meeting is being live streamed on Council Facebook page, and you will be able to view the proceedings of the meeting, councillor deliberations and voting. The meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the council website as soon as practicable after the meeting. Pursuant to the ministerial guidelines, should technology problems be encountered by the council where there is an inability to be able to broadcast this meeting to the public, then the meeting must be adjourned until resolution or postponed. The special meeting tonight will be conducted in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, the COVID-19 Omnibus Emergency Measures Act 2020, the Minister's Good Practice Guideline MGPG1 virtual meetings, councillors' governance rules, and the Hepburn Shire Council Councillor Code of Conduct. We acknowledge that to continue to protect the health and well-being of our staff and the community, that determination was made that there'll be no public gallery for tonight's meeting. In accordance with Chapter 6, Section 3 of our governance rules, a person, including any representative of the media, must not operate photographic, audio or video recording equipment or any other recording device at any council meeting without first obtaining the consent of the chairperson. And I note that at no point no one has requested that they would like to record this meeting. Permission does need to be sought if someone wants to take that footage and use it or broadcast it. I also remind everyone that local government decision making, unlike state and federal government, does not afford the benefit of parliamentary privilege, and hence no protection is afforded to councillors, council officers for comments made during meetings which are subsequently challenged in court, in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. As this meeting is being conducted virtually in accordance with the ministerial guidelines, where councillors are required to advise individually whether they can hear the proceedings and hear their other councillor colleagues and can be heard by their councillor colleagues, and also that they can see their councillor colleagues and be seen by the others. I need to confirm to each councillor whether or not they can be heard individually. Councillor Bragg, I'll start with you. Can you please confirm you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can hear proceedings and I can see and hear all of my councillor colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Bray, and I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Dryly, can you please confirm that you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can see and hear proceedings and see and hear my councillor colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Simpson, can you please confirm that you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can see all my colleagues and I can hear the proceedings.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Henderson, can you please confirm that you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues? Councillor Henderson, you're muted, I think.
Yes, I can confirm, Madam Mayor, that I can hear and see the proceedings and see all of my and hear all of my councillor colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Halliday, can you please confirm that you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I can confirm that I can see and hear all of my colleagues and that I can see and hear the proceedings.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Hood, can you please confirm that you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I can confirm that I can see and hear proceedings and my colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. I confirm that I can see and hear all of my councillor colleagues. Mr. Thomas, do we have any apologies for tonight's meeting?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'd now like to introduce councillor officers who are present in this councillor meeting. Mr. Bradley Thomas, our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Andrew Burgess, the Acting Director of Corporate and Community Services, Mr. Bruce Lucas, Director of Infrastructure and Development Services, Mr. Chris White, the ICT Manager, and Ms. Kristen Fort, our Manager of Governance and Risk. Thank you, officers. As required at any other meeting of council, councillors must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting when that item is presented to council. Councillors will be required to leave the meeting and return when the item's been resolved. At any point throughout the meeting, if any other councillor recognises that they have an indirect or direct interest, they can flag at that point and follow the same procedure. I would also note that under Local Government Governance and Integrity Regulations 2021, councillors are exempt from declaring a conflict of interest in the consideration of the payment of allowances to the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors as provided for under Section 39(6) of the Act, and also a matter relating to preparing or adopting a budget or a revised budget under Part 4 of the Act if the budget or revised budget includes funding for that matter and the council previously approved the matter and the proposed funding for that matter, and the councillor who had a conflict of interest in respect of that matter disclosed the conflict when the council previously considered and made the decision in respect of that matter and approved the proposed funding for that matter. Also, they're excused if there's a matter relating to preparing or adopting a community vision, council plan, financial plan, asset plan, or revenue and rating plan, relevant document, under Part 4 of the Act if the relevant document includes that matter and the council previously approved that matter for inclusion in a relevant document, and a councillor who had a conflict of interest in respect of that matter disclosed the conflict when the council previously considered and made any decisions in respect of that matter. Councillors, I now ask you all if any councillor has a conflict of interest to declare. If there are any conflicts of interest to declare, may I ask councillors to state which provision of the Act the conflict satisfies and the item on the agenda they have a conflict of interest in. Councillors, I'm asking you now, if you have a conflict of interest, could you please raise your hand and speak? Okay, so there are no conflicts of interest declared from councillors. Officers that are present, I now ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented before council tonight. Mr. Bradley Thomas, do you have any conflict of interest to declare at tonight's special council meeting?
No, Madam Mayor, I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Bruce Lucas, do you have any conflicts of interest to declare at tonight's special council meeting?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. I can confirm I do not have any conflicts in tonight's proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Mr. Andrew Burgess, do you have any conflicts of interest to declare at tonight's special council meeting?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I do not have any conflict of interest in any item in this evening's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Chris White, do you have any conflict of interest to declare at tonight's special council meeting?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have no conflicts of interest to declare on any items in tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. White. Miss Kristen Fort, do you have any conflicts of interest to declare at tonight's ordinary council meeting, special council meeting?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, no, I don't have anything to declare for tonight's council meeting.
Thank you. Then we'll move to item 5.1 on the agenda, which is the adoption of the Revenue and Rating Plan 2021 to 2025. And now I'd ask Mr. Andrew Burgess, as the Acting Director of Community and Corporate Services, to introduce the report. Mr. Burgess? You're muted, Mr. Burgess.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. Section 93 of the Local Government Act 2020 requires Victorian councils to prepare and adopt a revenue and rating plan by the 30th of June after a general election for a period of at least the next 4 financial years. At the ordinary meeting of council on the 20th of April 2021, council resolved to endorse the draft revenue and rating plan 2021 to 2025. Authorise the interim chief executive officer to display the draft plan on public exhibition commencing the 21 April 21 and invite comments for 28 days. Authorise officers to make minor administrative changes to the draft revenue and rating plan for 2021-2025 as required, and note that the final revenue and rating plan for 2021-2025 be presented to the special council meeting on 29th of June 2021, tonight's meeting. The purpose of the revenue and rating plan is to determine the most appropriate and affordable revenue and rating approach for council to generate the required income to enable it to adequately finance the objectives in the council plan and the programs, services and capital works in the budget. In relation to the public exhibition, in reply to council's invitation for comments, 11 responses were received. It was the note that changes to the structure and level of rates and charges will be considered by council during the 22-23 year, which attracted the attention of the respondents. Councillors, on page 6 of the report, there is a table, 6 and 7, there is a table provided which provides a brief description of each response received. As a result of those responses and further considerations, councillors have expressed a preference to review the structure and level of rates and charges during the 2021-2022 year rather than the 2022-23 year as noted in the draft plan. Therefore, an amount of $30,000 has been allocated to the 2021-2022 draft budget to undertake the review, including an appropriate level of community engagement. Councillors, in the briefing document, no changes were proposed to the structure and level of rates and charges for the 2021-2022 year, and a number of changes to the structure and level of rates and charges were put forward to be considered by council during 2022 and 2023. Those changes included are identified and detailed on page 6 of the report and provided a lower concession for recreational land properties which are able to generate significant income, introducing a higher differential rate for residential properties that are used for short-term accommodation, introduce a lower differential rate for residential properties used for social housing, introduce a higher differential rate for commercial, industrial and mixed-use properties to reflect their greater capacity to pay rates and charges, introduce a lower differential for farmland properties undertake sustainable farming practices, and introduce a higher differential rate for vacant land, and finally introduce a higher differential rate for vacant properties. No other changes are proposed to any other revenue policies in the revenue or rating plan. Councillors, there is a recommendation before you, which is on page 4 and 5 of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Are there any questions of Mr. Burgess on his report? Councillor Bray.
Madam Mayor, thanks, Mr. Burgess. Just to clarify, the things that you've just listed, those 7 points that you've just read out, they are the things to consider. These are the items to consider in a future project to look at revenue and rating review that we might undertake next year, in the next financial year. These are not changes that are currently going to impact on this current financial year's revenue and rating plan. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bray. For clarity, these are matters that Council can consider in the 21-22 financial year. They are not matters that will be undertaken or completed.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Are there any further questions of Mr. Burgess? Then I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Henderson, would you like to read your motion? You've muted, Councillor Henderson.
Yes, Madam Mayor, and it is different to what you see on the papers as advertised. Yes, it is up on the board there, and perhaps I need to read it. And it notes the community submissions made in relation to the draft revenue and rating plan, and thanks those for making submissions. Acknowledges financial contribution made by all property owners and property types through annual rates. Brings forward the 2021-22 financial year a project to model possible changes to rating differentials as outlined in the draft revenue and rating plan and received as part of the community submissions process, noting that findings of the project will be available for the councillors to consider as part of the 2022-23 budget process. Fund $30,000 in the 2021-22 budget to allow the project to be undertaken and adopt the revenue and rating plan 2021-20 to 25.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hood. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would, and I'll be as quick as I can. The situation is that, but not by intent, but we did put out something that caused some concern in the community, and although it was not our intent to necessarily do what we said in that, it was matters to be considered, some people took that as we were going to do it, and that's unfortunate because that's not our intent at all. And the intent, I think, through my motion is more clear, and that makes it that we'll consider all aspects of our rates and where we derive those rates. And as we know, we can only get 1.5% of rates over and above what we collect the previous year. So that means if we give to one, we have to take off another, or if we take off someone, we can make it less rate for someone else. And I think this motion is far clearer, and it causes less concern about what our intent is. And I don't think our intent was ever to necessarily do any of those things that were there. They were merely there because we had some submissions about them from a number of people. So I commend that motion as it is. Can't take back the other one, but I believe that this will assist the community to move forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Hood, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will. Thanks, Madam Mayor. In supporting Councillor Henderson's motion, I will make several observations. The first being that obviously rates are critically important to council financially, and they are also very important to all the various sectors of the community. So it's important that we get the structure of them right. I therefore commend that next year we do undertake such a review. And I note that the key words or phrases in the motion are that we will model possible changes and that we will then consider them for inclusion in the 22-23 budget. They may or may not be included, but they'll be considered. And the third and final observation I'd make, Madam Mayor, is that there are significant phrases mentioned in the 7 dot points in the report, which reflect on 7 different sections of the community. And as part of the research in considering those changes, it will be terribly important to get the definitions of things like significant income, short-term accommodation, social housing, and sustainable farming practices well defined and well understood by the community, so that the whatever changes come out of differential rating are applied consistently and fairly. So I'd make those observations in supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Dryly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say that we're all affected by rates. They're somewhat unpalatable for people, but they make up over 60% of council's revenue. They fund services, facilities and capital works. And we also have mechanisms for review, such as this revenue and rating plan, that keep us in check, that we can't do just what we want when we want it. We hear stories in the community about rates always going up, and that our rates are exorbitantly high, but we're statistically a low rating council, and that we are bound by the, as others have said, the 1.5% rate cap. So proportionally, that money is spread across the Shire. In relation to this particular motion, I'm supporting, I'd like to thank the committee members for their submissions, and that, as Councillor Hood has also said, these are possible changes that we'll be considering as part of a project that will model the outcomes. And I'm really glad that it's been funded in the 2021-22 budget. But also like to reassure our community that we will carefully and appropriately consider any changes in line with our council vision and other strategic objectives and input from our community. And that there will be other opportunities for community engagement, and that differential rates are actually a really important lever for councils in terms of issues of equity and disadvantage, and that they do look after our community interest in that way. And I really support this this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Does any councillor wish to speak against the motion? No? Then I will put the motion to the vote. Ms. Fort, could you put the motion up again, please? So that, thank you. I won't read it out again, but you can see it there. So could all those in favour please raise their hand and leave it up till I call your name. Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Bray, Councillor Henderson and Councillor Hood. The motion's carried unanimously, and thank you, councillors, and I hope that that makes it clear to the community that what my fellow councillors have said will be taken into account, and community responses. We move on to item 5.2, review of mayoral and council allowances pursuant to section 74 of the Local Government Act 1989. And I'd like to introduce Ms. Kristen Fort, Manager of Governance and Risk, to introduce the report.
Thank you, councillors, and through you, Madam Mayor. Mayors and councillors, as you know, are entitled to receive remuneration, which is in the form of an allowance while performing their duties as an elected official. Until such time as the Victorian Independent Remuneration Tribunal makes its first determination on allowances under the 2020 Act, the provisions of the Local Government Act 1989 continue to apply in respect of the review and the determination of mayoral and council allowances. Therefore, councils are required to undertake a review of the allowances in accordance with that section 74 of the Local Government Act 1989, which stipulates that councils are required to review this level of allowance within the period of 6 months from the time of a general election or by the next 30th of June, whichever is later. The allowance will remain in effect for the full term of the council, being 2020 to 2024, subject to an annual review, as I said to you before, by the Minister of Local Government when they issue an order for the determination by the Victorian Independent Remuneration Tribunal, which is expected to be in late 2021. Any review of mayoral and council allowances must involve a public consultation process, which is instructed under Section 223 of the Local Government Act 1989. And council, as you may recall, at your meeting in May 2021, council approved to endorse in principle the mayoral and council allowances at the top of level 1 category and commenced that 223 process under the Local Government Act 1989 and invited written submissions. The invitation for the public to put forward written submissions commenced on Wednesday the 19th of May and concluded on Tuesday the 15th of June 2021. Officers prepared a range of Facebook posts which were issued and disseminated on council's Facebook page, encouraging consultation and submissions to be received. These posts were issued on the 19th of May, the 26th of May, the 31st of May and the 10th of June. And a Participate Hepburn page was launched, basically trying to promote and engage with the community on putting forward a submission on the council allowances. And that was established on the 19th of May. 0 submissions were received throughout this period, and therefore a special council meeting to hear submissions, which was going to take place should any written submissions be received, was not required, so that didn't take place. In determining allowances, consideration should be given to the scale and increasing complexity in the roles of both mayoral and councillors. And it's really important to note that in determining these allowances, the duties of a councillor's consideration of time needs to be taken into account, the energy, the commitment that they must contribute, with many reducing their time in paid employment to meet the demands of the role. While it's acknowledged that an allowance helps in part to compensate councillors, it doesn't reflect the actual value of the time and the commitment that they contribute to the role, to the community, and to the work that they undertake. The range in which Hepburn Shire Council sits is in Category 1, and Category 1 councils are categorised into categories based on the size and the population, and Hepburn Shire Council fall within Category 1. They're set within certain ranges, and the range that councillors can get remunerated on is $8,833 up to $21,049. Mayors are up to $62,884. The current allowance that the councillors receive, it is to be noted, is at the top of Category 1. I'd also like to just note out that the mayoral and council allowances are also subject to the addition of the equivalent of superannuation guarantee, which is 9.5%. However, it is to be noted that this percentage is scheduled to increase to 10% from the 1st of July 2021 and will be applied accordingly. Councillors, I commend the officer recommendation before you as outlined on page 47 of the agenda papers for this meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Fort. Are there any questions of Ms. Fort on this matter? In which case, I'm in search of a motion as per the officer's recommendation. I'll just read it out. The council endorses setting of the mayoral and council allowance at the top level 1 category, which is mayoral allowance 62,884, council allowance 21,049, plus an additional 9.5% of the above allowances is payable as an equivalent of the Commonwealth superannuation guarantee. 2, note that a statutory process pursuant to section 223 of the Local Government Act 1989 was undertaken for a period of 28 days, inviting written submissions and nil submissions were received. And 3, authorises the relevant officers to commence the administrative requirements to ensure that the allowances and superannuation is applied accordingly to the Mayor and Councillors of Hepburn Shire Council. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? I have a mover. I don't have a mover. Councillor Bray, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Halliday. Councillor Bray, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support the motion for the reasons that Ms Ford has outlined, that this allowance allows councillors to actually commit time and energy to their communities. It removes that reliance on full-time paid work so that we actually do have the time to be there for our communities. And so for that reason, I do support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Halliday.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Does any councillor wish to speak against the motion? In which case, I'll put the motion that I read out to the vote. All those in favour, raise their hand. Councillor Simpson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Hood, Councillor Bray, and myself, Councillor Hewitt, and the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 5.3, adoption of the 2021-2022 annual budget. Mr. Burgess, the Acting Director of Community and Corporate Services, could you please introduce this report?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Under Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020, Council is required to prepare an annual budget. The budget describes how Council intends to raise revenue and allocate resources to deliver services and invest in both existing and new infrastructure. Council considered the 2021-2022 proposed budget at its meeting on the 20th of April 2021 and made the draft budget available for public comment. At the conclusion of that public exhibition and community engagement process, 21 submissions were received. This report presents to Council the updated 2021-22 budget in line with relevant legislation and regulations. The budget allocates funding for the provision of more than 100 services and significant investment in asset renewal and new asset construction. The budget is sought to deliver a financial responsible budget that is mindful of the impact of COVID-19, the financial position of the Shire and our available resources, and has been developed on our best information available. Council is currently undertaking an extensive community consultation project as part of the Hepburn Together project that will deliver the 10-year community vision, a 4-year council plan incorporating the municipal public health and wellbeing plan, and provide key input into the development of our 10-year long-term financial plan. These key documents detail the future direction the council will be taking and will be considered in the first quarter of the 2021-22 financial year. As the Hepburn Together project continues, Council will further consider the allocation of its resources. As such, this budget could be seen very much as business as usual. However, there are a number of programs and projects that respond to the early feedback from our community. In particular, councillors, I draw your attention to the fact that Council has allocated over $600,000 to strategic planning projects in this budget. This responds directly to the Council resolution from the Special Council meeting on the 29th of March 2021, and also submissions from our community received in response to the draft budget. In relation to some of the key financials that are included in the budget, Council has total revenue of $40.879 million. That's an increase of $3.8 million, reflecting increases in rates, charges, and capital grants. We have a total operating expenditure of $35.7 million, which is a decrease of $531,000. We have an operating surplus of $5.089 million, and Council has budgeted to receive $9.2 million or $9.199 million in capital grants, which will be invested into capital works projects, which results in an operating surplus. Cash and investments of $10.89 million. Council has budgeted to hold that $10.89 million of cash and investments as of 30 June 2022. However, some being $9.25 million is restricted for use. Council has a low unrestricted cash position and is closely monitoring and improving this position as we go forward. There are new borrowings of $740,000 to fund finalisation of the Hepburn Hub at the Rex construction. This expenditure was approved as part of Council's 2020-2021 mid-year budget review. Capital works of some $11.652 million have been included. This is a large capital works project, particularly due to the significant state and federal government funding to assist in the much needed economic recovery from COVID-19 from our communities. In relation to rates and charges, as has been spoken about earlier tonight, rates and charges make up approximately 60% of Council's annual budgeted revenue and are vital to allowing us to provide the services and the facilities that our community need. Rate increases have been capped at 1.5% in line with the Victorian Government's Fair Go rate system, and Council has not applied to the Essential Services Commission for a rate cap variation. Council will continue with its council-funded additional rebate of $21 for pensioners who qualified under the state government's pensioner rebate, pensioner rate remission scheme, and to assist them to accommodate the difficulty experienced by our pensioners. In relation to waste charges, and councillors, I'll just call out the fact that I'm not reading all these paragraphs out of the report. I'm just calling out a number of the key paragraphs. In relation to waste charges, there is an average increase of approximately 20.9% in annual waste charges, which has been necessary to meet increased services cost to users of the service. This increase will amount to an average additional cost of $83 per property per year. The increase accounts for the rising cost of waste management, which has been impacted by price and also volume increases of some 20%. The under recovery of waste costs for 2020-2021, the under recovery of waste costs for 2020-21, global recycling challenges, and the payment of state government landfill levy. Councillors, it is noted that this is a significant increase. However, there are a number of cost factors that are outside the control of Council. Council is, however, putting into place responses to the increasing cost of waste services, which includes entering into a new curbside waste collection contract for 2021-22 and a Shire-wide waste strategy to drive the future direction and objectives. The standard annual fee for residential property, weekly garbage collection and fortnightly recycling will now be $479 or the equivalent of $9.20 per week. Councillors, Council will continue to accept e-waste materials free of charge at our transfer stations and encourage recycling of e-waste items. We will continue to offer significantly reduced first-year animal registration fees to promote the registration, desexing and microchipping of cats and dogs. And our swimming pool fees will again be free of charge in 2021-22, encouraging our residents to stay active and healthy. Councillors, under Services and Initiatives, Section 2 of the budget provides a description of the services and initiatives to be funded in the 21-22 financial years. Items to highlight include, but certainly are not limited to, the completion of the Hepburn Together project, which has included the adoption of our community engagement policy, but will also finalise the community's vision and our council plan. There's over $600,000, as I've said, for strategic planning projects, including funding to assist with the ESS submission in relation to the Western Victoria transmission lines and funding to advance planning for an affordable housing strategy. There will be development of a new council website. There is also development of new Shire-wide walking and cycling strategy, and we will be updating our waste, biodiversity and sustainability strategies. Under Capital Works, councillors, the budget will deliver $11.65 million of capital works, improving, renewing and creating new infrastructure for our communities and Shire. This is a significant allocation of funding. In fact, it is 62% of our general rates. Projects to be delivered projects will be delivered Shire-wide. Over $1.45 million will be spent on road improvements, upgrades and rehabilitation, including the upgrade to the Dalesford-Clunes Road in Smeaton and the Cotswold and Glengower Roads intersection near Glengower. Over $1.62 million will be spent on gravel and road reseals. Over $1.24 million will be invested in the renewal of our community buildings. $2.94 million will be spent on recreation facilities, including the commencement of the Hammond Park Trailhead, Community and Youth Hub or Community Hub project, cricket nets at the Newland and cricket nets at Newland, and the renewal of several hardcourt facilities. $600,000 will be spent on bridge and renewal works. $534,000 on new upgrades to footpath and cycleways, and $763,000 will be on parks and open space works, including Chatfield Reserve landscape works at Lakes Dalesford, renewal of reserve and open space furniture, and streetscape improvements planning in Clunes and Creswick. The budget process, councillors, follows a comprehensive and stringent process in its development, and it is unusual that there are factors that create a situation where the original draft budget is changed significantly. However, since the budget was placed on out for public advertising, a number of changes are required to respond to the budget submissions, and also the preliminary findings of the Hepburn Together project, as I previously advised. Whilst this is unusual, the changes in the budget and the document don't constitute a material change. In summary, the revised 2021-2022 budget incorporates the following changes. Recognition of grant funding that will be received in 2021-2022 year that creates a commitment to spend funds in future years. The size of this commitment is $3.207 million. However, it delivers a number of council's key projects in a short time frame and are predominantly funded by external sources, including the Trentham Community Hub, the Trentham Recreation Reserve Pavilion, the Bellardo Station upgrade, and the Wombat Hill Botanic Gardens upgrade. The organisational and structure changes have been made to allow council officers to better respond and deliver on key issues that have been identified by councillors and our community. And there are responses to items raised by the community through the public submission process. The budget includes a further $200,000 for strategic planning activity, including, as I've outlined, the affordable housing and the Western Vic transmission lines projects, as well as $20,000 towards a master plan development for the Magic Pudding Playground out of Creswick. Council officers have taken into account consideration the short, medium and long-term impacts of these opportunities and resourcing decisions when presenting this revised budget to councillors. The revised budget adopts the same principles which balances services and project delivery alongside financial sustainability for the Shire. The changes in the budget document are outlined within this report on pages 46 and pages 47. And councillors, I don't intend, unless councillors would like me to read all those changes out any further. Councillors, I'll refer you to the recommendation, the officer recommendation, and that is the council, having considered the submissions to the 2021-2022 proposed budget, 1, adopts the budgets annexed to this resolution in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020 and relevant regulations. 2, acknowledges the contribution of submitters to the budget consultation process, thanks them for their contributions and requests officers to provide a formal response to each submitter. 3, implements rates and service charges as detailed in the budget. 4, notes the Council Plan 2017 to 2021 and preliminary findings of the Hepburn Together project was used to develop this budget, and that a new community vision and Council Plan is currently in development. And 5, determines that a copy of the adopted budget 2021-2022 be submitted to the Minister in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020. Through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Does any councillor have any questions of Mr. Burgess at this point? Councillor Henderson?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I actually have a number of questions and I'm happy to ask them one at a time if you don't mind, because they're somewhat different. Mr. Burgess, we've allocated an extra couple of $100,000 for the strategic planning, and I know full well how hard it is to get the staff to be able to undertake this work. How confident are we, having allocated those extra funds, that we can actually spend the money in this coming financial year?
Councillor Anderson, I can answer that by saying that we will do all that we possibly can to ensure that we get the staffing resources to be able to deliver a very ambitious but much needed project of strategic planning in the next financial year.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Lucas, I understand you might have a comment to make on that question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just in addition to Mr. Burgess's comments for response, I guess, to Councillor Henderson's query, understanding councillors' strong desire and also community's strong desire to deliver a rapid strategic planning program, we worked closely with officers around what is possible, I guess, in the coming 12 months. So whilst we went to a community exhibition process with the draft budget and understanding a number of the submissions that came in and the desire to increase that funding, we went back and worked with our planning team to say how much more could we do, and we think we've struck a balance between having a high level of confidence we can deliver it, but not putting up something that we think is unreasonable or unachievable.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lucas. I'm happy, Madam Mayor, for you to stop me anytime and give someone else a go, or just go through my questions.
At this stage, Councillor Henderson, I'll let you go through your questions, because I don't have an indication from my other councillors that they wish to answer a question. But when I do, I will change the order if that's all right with you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I noticed that there's a couple of changes that weren't mentioned. One of them that have been mentioned, they've been voted on by council, so I'm not going over the whether they're credible or not, or whether I support them or I didn't. That's beside the point. But the question is, we have a couple of items such as the $30,000 that something happening there. That everyone here.
Got some pretty significant feedback at this end, Madam Mayor.
Yes, I can hear you, Councillor Henderson. I think Mr. Thomas unmuted himself, but now he's muted himself again and the feedback has gone.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. There are a couple of items, and one is we did not put out the $30,000 that was to go to do the rate revenue. That was intended, when we discussed it and put it out, that was intended to be put out in the following year. And there's the other one that the council voted to do. So that was the LGBTIQA plus committee of some $50,000. Since they weren't in the original budget, could I please be told where that money is actually coming from? Because I know that if you put something in the budget, once it's done, you have to take it from somewhere else. Where are those two items going to be drawn from?
Happy to answer that, Madam Mayor.
Certainly, Mr. Thomas.
It is obviously able to be a practice for councils to put additional projects into the budget. In terms of those funding, the $30,000 in regards to the rates and revenue program was earmarked to be spent in the financial year 22-23. So work we would be undertaking, so all we've done is brought that forward into the current year. So it's really a cash flow movement component. And in relation to the funding for the LGBTIQ plus committee and associated resource, that is a council resolution. We've been able to work with our funding partners in our current sort of Age Disability Services, and we believe some of the funding for projects that we've got in there will be able to allocate towards the work that this committee will be able to do. Obviously, with COVID and a number of items, we have had some underspending in that space. We're keen to work with our funding partners to try and ensure that we can utilise those funds for this funding for the committee. And that committee ongoing, as council noted at the previous meeting, would then become part of annual operations of council.
Thanks, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Henderson, Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, so that answers my question. It's coming out of the aged care budget. So with the development, and there's a question here. I was bombarded by farmers at the weekend over the question of perhaps changes to differentials and what might happen with the rates and revenue. Is there room in the budget or within that review to be able to have some constructive meetings throughout the Shire with farmers to be able to see that they actually get heard? And we're going to take that out of the community consultation area, or will that be just part of our normal work? Should I move, because I flag I will be moving something perhaps at the July meeting to enable that to happen. So will there be any room in the budget to do that, to undertake that consultation?
Mr. Thomas.
So consultation in regards to the revenue and rating plan will be undertaken by officers, and this budget includes $30,000 to assist in that project. So that's sort of the wider rates and revenue. It won't be focused on one particular property group. It'll be across the board, as the revenue and rating plan impacts on all items, or all ratepayers and all property owners.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Councillor Henderson.
Didn't really answer my question, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry. Will there be an opportunity somehow funded? Because I might make a change to the budget if I have to see that the farmers get a say. So,
So sorry, Councillor, if I can add to that, if your question's not related specifically to the rating of revenue policy, so yeah, okay. So if it's in relation to wider consultation with the agricultural sector, if council was of a mind to, council officers could organise a relatively simple sort of working community session with the agricultural sector. It might be like a town hall style meeting or something like that. We could obviously do that within our own operation budgets and wouldn't require any change to the proposed budget.
Okay, happy with that. And the last question, Madam Mayor, is the order of things. And the order of things is that quite often we put things in budgets, and in the infrastructure budget in particular, and then when it comes time to do the project, we find some reason why we can't do it, and then we roll it over into the next year. Now, one particular project I've looked at, I advocated for the last 12 years to get done. I understand it's going to get done, but it's one thing to put something in a budget and then be sure that it's actually going to get attempted or be looked at seriously, because sometimes we see things in there and then we don't get a sod turn, and people think, oh gee, they get excited, we're going to get these projects done, and then 5 years later they're not done, and that upsets our ratepayers. So are we going to start the ones that have been rolled over first and knock them off and get them done because they've been on our books for a while? Or are we going to get excited and barge in and do the new projects that have been put in the budget because we feel the community want them? So how will we phase that in?
Mr. Thomas or Mr. Lucas, would you like to answer Councillor Henderson's question?
Happy to answer that one, Madam Mayor. Council obviously has a really ambitious capital works program, but has been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years. We understand the frustration of our community where there's funding in the budget and the project doesn't get delivered. And it doesn't get delivered for a number of reasons, particularly in relation to the planning and development that we need to undertake. I think council has got better at funding a planning component in 1 year and then the construction in another year. But all projects are important to officers, and we need to work through those. So there's obviously will be some carry forward projects. A number of them continue, and we'll be just really working hard. We're putting additional staff on, number of project managers. We're undertaking we've created a major projects unit, which is really focused at delivering those projects. So once that project is funded in the budget, it has similar importance to each other, and we'll work through those projects in the best way to ensure delivery. And it's our hope by the time we get to June 30, 2022, that we really delivered the current program and any backlog of projects put forward, and we'll be working as quickly around the clock to deliver them as possible.
So once again, I'm not entirely satisfied with the answer, Madam Mayor. Not trying to be difficult, but I know that the officers diligently try and get as much done as they can, and I know they're working flat out. My real question is that if a project is already scoped and it's already budgeted for, but it's been sitting there for a couple of years, will that get priority over one that's just passed in this budget? So if we pass the budget tonight and we rush out and do a project that we've had planned for a while, but we've also had another one planned, what's that? What's the likelihood of the triage, if you like? That's a better word. How will they be triaged? So
I would say the majority of cases, if we've got the planning and the procurement and we're ready to go in terms of constructions of past projects, those ones are obviously the priority to start working on. Council's funded a number of new projects that'll need planning work and the procurement and the design to be undertaken. So there'll be a combination of both planning going on and construction work, but we're really committed to getting that backlog fixed. That really is our priority in terms of our triage, but we're entering into funding agreements for the delivery of a number of new projects as well. So we need to be mindful of that.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Lucas, did you want to say anything, or are you fine?
Just to reiterate, I guess, what Mr. Thomas has indicated, the other point I might just highlight is we have two teams, or have multiple teams across the organisation. Sport and recreation will be doing some projects. Our engineering team will be doing some asset renewal projects, and we'll have our major projects team, doing a number of one-off type projects. So some teams might have minimal carry forward projects, and so they'll be able to move on to some of the current year or the new year's asset renewal projects whilst there's still a backlog of other one-off type projects. So it will be a bit of a mix and match depending on which team's dealing with which projects. But I can categorically reiterate what the CEO has indicated, is that there is an absolute focus at officer level to clear the backlog of projects. We, just as much as councillors and community, hate to have a carry forward project on our books.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Councillor Henderson, do you have any other questions?
No, Madam Mayor, I'm waiting with bated breath for Cullenbean Park to start. Thank you.
Noted. Do any other councillors have any questions at this stage? No, then I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Dryly, but I want, hang on, can you unmute yourself please, Councillor Dryly? Councillor Dryly, and then Councillor Dryly, can you read out what motion you're moving, please?
Oh, sorry.
You're moving, just for clarity for my fellow councillors, are you moving the officer's recommendation?
Just a moment.
Or something different?
I'd like to move the officer's motion.
As it's written in the agenda papers and in the agenda?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Do I have a seconder for the officer's recommendation as it's written in the council, in the agenda? Councillor Halliday? Thank you. Councillor Dryly, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'd just like to. I'd like to say that just really impressed with the work the council officers have done to produce this document. There's some really fantastic opportunities in the coming year, particularly with the allocation of $600,000 to strategic planning, which was 20 years in the making. And there's been a big gap in that area. It gives us a really huge leap forward in terms of our planning opportunities in the coming years. Acknowledging certain areas such as the rising costs of waste management and the need to address the real and growing costs of that, and the need for us to be more involved in the circular economy, to recycle, reuse and minimise our waste to landfill. There is an increase in that area, but it's a necessary increase. Really acknowledge the important priorities around including affordable housing and $50,000 to assist with the EES submission to the Western Victorian Transmission Lines project, and the inclusion of the LGBTIQA+ committee funding. To congratulate officers with securing $3.207 million in grant funding for several important community infrastructure projects. And also supporting the organisational structure changes that are mentioned that really will better service and listen to our community at a ground level. Our community has been calling out very loudly for us to listen and respond to their concerns and for us to defend the community interest above others. I'd also just like to briefly mention Council's commitment to responding to climate change by reducing our emissions, reducing waste to landfill and restoring biodiversity. It's important to note that in this budget there's the opportunities for our community to be engaged and involved in waste, biodiversity and sustainable strategy updates during 2021-22.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Dryly. Councillor Halliday, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I will just quickly. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tim has covered everything quite well, but I also wanted to say that I'm equally excited by some of the things that we've managed to achieve in the budget, namely adding another 600,000 over the next 2 years to the planning scheme review, as well as a couple of other things like the website to help us engage with the community better and for people to be able to find out information better. I feel that's really important. And the walking and cycling strategy and so forth are really great initiatives to try and get us more connected, healthier and enjoying our environment. That's about all for me.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think both Councillor Dryly and Halliday have really summed up some of the real highlights of the budget. I want to commend the officers and our CEO, Bradley Thomas, for putting this budget together. When we were first elected, we were concerned that we wouldn't have much opportunity given the COVID tightening of the belt. We wouldn't have much opportunity to really deliver the things that we wanted to after hearing from our community, but we actually have been able to find a way to do that. And it's part of the reason why the budget has slightly changed even after the draft submission, the draft proposed budget went out. We heard even more feedback from our community. So with the submissions that came in, as well as the Happen Together project, where we heard loud and clear what the community were interested in, this budget has taken that into consideration. So we see a focus on, strong focus on strategic planning to protect our Shire and its heritage and all the various elements that we need to look after, such as farming land, biodiversity, tourism, and we're looking at affordable housing. We're looking at keeping our emissions down. We're looking at heritage, looking after our heritage buildings, our roads, footpaths, cycling paths, and also acknowledging the increase in waste charges. So I do support this budget. Well done to the officers who have been able to pull this together, and I think it will deliver a good 2021-22 budget.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Henderson? You're muted. Yep.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm loath to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I'm loath to go back on motions of council. And what I am against is shifting money from one place to the other. And whilst I have the chance, and I'm not on my feet, but I might as well be, I want to say that shifting money from the aged care budget to the LGBTIQA plus, to me, well, I think it's actually not a sort of act that I'm very comfortable with. And I don't want to oppose the budget because I think it is a good budget. And for all the good things that have happened, as my three other colleagues have said, I actually like the fact that we're spending some money on the roads. The gravel upgrades and the upgrades to our roads is so vital to so many people who actually live on those gravel roads. And we've been fairly lucky in getting funding to do those projects, grant funding and so on, and stimulus packages, and that's actually helped. You know, I won't speak against the budget, but I feel strongly about some of the way that it's been constructed. However, I do accept that council makes a resolution, and whether if I win, I'm lucky, and if I lose, I'm unlucky, and I accept the decisions of council, Madam Mayor. And so that's it for me. I do support the budget, but I don't support some of the aspects of the way the money has been done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Does any other councillor wish to speak in favour of the motion?
Yes, I will, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
I do find myself, though, Madam Mayor, in a position that I didn't think I would be, because I came with my notes readily prepared to speak thoroughly for the budget, because it has many positive aspects. It has an ambitious capital works program, and I'm particularly supportive of the extra $600,000 that we've funded for the strategic planning, for the settlement strategic plans and the environmental and heritage studies. I think they are particularly good. I think the financial hardship aspects that we have in the budget as well are particularly good. The budget does have some challenges for us. It again indicates that 33% of our income is coming from grants, and that is terribly important, that we have those relationships with government and the funding bodies. There are several it's a mixed bag, the budget. There are several missed opportunities. Waste management, which should be a full cost recovery activity. We've missed the opportunity there by under recovering those costs. Mr. Burgess outlined the additional cost of $83 a household. That's not even $2 a week, and we missed an opportunity to balance the books there. The budget also is weak in that it has a number of discretionary spends in it that are way off council providing basic services, and there's some challenges there, particularly with equity as well across wards and across segments of the community. I am particularly uncomfortable that the new committee that we're forming is being funded the $50,000 out of the aged care budget. I think that's very inappropriate. It should not be happening. That committee should be funded out of cash reserves, and to rob it out of the aged care budget is quite inappropriate. Probably not outrageous enough to vote against the budget, but I'm distinctly uncomfortable with that move. That is entirely inappropriate. Finally, as we repair the budget, we've inherited a very poor cash position. At least we've now got our uncommitted cash back into positive territory, and some more tough decisions will have to be made. But also, it's incumbent on councillors to signal this to the community and educate the community about council's budget status, and therefore to responsibly temper expectations that are set in the community for the sort of spending that has been indicated quite irresponsibly in recent times.
20 seconds, 20 seconds, Councillor Hood.
19, 18, 17. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillor want to speak in favour of the motion? Any councillor want to speak against the motion? Councillor Dryly, do you want to have a right of reply?
No one's spoken against it.
No one's spoken against it, so it's probably a little unorthodox. You're correct, Councillor Henderson. No one has spoken against it, although there have been some, so perhaps we'll leave that, Councillor Dryly, although there have obviously been some points raised that indicate that not every councillor thinks that that everything in the budget is fine. I'll put the motion to the vote. Ms. Port, are you able to put the officer's recommendation on the screen so that people understand what we're voting for? Is that, thank you. So it's the officer's recommendation that Councillor Dryly has moved and Councillor Halliday has seconded. I'll put the motion to the vote. Can I have all those in favour raise their hand, please? So it's Councillor Simpson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Bray, Councillor Henderson, and myself, Councillor Hewitt. Those against, raise their hand. Okay, Councillor Hood, are you abstaining?
Yes, I am. I'll neither support nor reject that budget because of the robbing of the aged care budget. That's quite inappropriate.
Thank you.
And could easily have been resolved.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. That's noted. So the motion is carried. 6 in favour, 1 abstaining. I'd like to take this opportunity to just reinforce my councillor colleagues' comments in thanking the staff for putting this work together. Councillor Bray mentioned Mr. Thomas, who's done a great deal of work, but I also need to thank Mr. Rob Ellis for his work on the budget. Mr. Ellis is the acting finance manager who came into that position when the process had already started. And Mr. Ellis, we'd like to formally acknowledge the amount of work you've done and the effort that you've put into getting to this budget that's now been approved. So thank you, Mr. Ellis, on behalf of my councillor colleagues. We move now to item 5.4, the adoption of the road management plan. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Bruce Lucas, who is the Director of Infrastructure and Development Services, to introduce the report. Thanks, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Following an initial presentation to the ordinary meeting of Council on the 20th of April 21 and a subsequent public exhibition process, the purpose of this report is to provide a summary of the submissions received and present the updated draft road management plan for Council consideration for adoption. Councillors, the road management plan is almost an operational document that sets out what our maintenance and management responsibilities are for our road infrastructure assets, and also sets out the level of service both for us to achieve and also manages the expectations and provides an understanding for community around what they can expect in terms of how council will manage its road asset. During the exhibition period, 6 submissions were received, and a summary of those submissions are included in the officer's report. I will just reference in short, there were 6 submissions received, 4 of which were seeking council to invest funds into upgrading existing road infrastructure, and they have been referred through to our engineering and infrastructure team to undertake an assessment and prioritisation of those works in accordance with the road upgrade policy recently endorsed by Council. There was a further submission seeking Council to consider vegetation management along our footpath network to protect pedestrians walking along footpaths, and also a final submission that raised some concerns around the proposed intervention level for corrugations and potholes on our gravel road network. Councillors, as I said, 4 of them have been referred through to our team for assessment and prioritisation, they being the asset upgrade requests. The other 2 officers have considered and have seen fit to embrace some of that feedback and have made amendments to the draft road management plan as a result of receiving those submissions. And the draft, or the upgraded draft road management plan, is presented for Council's consideration tonight. The officer's recommendation sets out that Council, in accordance with Section 53 of the Road Management Act 2004, adopts the Road Management Plan 2021 to 2025, provided and as attached to the report, and 2, notes that a copy of the Road Management Plan will be placed on Council's website.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Lucas about this? Councillor Henderson.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I note this and it's a good step forward, but Mr. Lucas, there could be a tendency towards using this document and this road management plan in a very bureaucratic way, if you like, where we've got large sections of the community who identify a road as having more use, and yet we go and put a road counter and it falls a couple short, or it doesn't quite fit a criteria, or maybe the pothole isn't quite as deep as what's required for the intervention level, but yet there are 3 or 4 dozen potholes, which makes it very difficult. So one isolated pothole that's only 70 mil deep instead of 100 mil deep, can that add up to 50 potholes at 75 mil deep require us to go and do a fix on our road?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Henderson. I probably should highlight that the intervention levels set out in the road management plan before you tonight is the outer limit, if you like, or the upper limit, and we would certainly be seeking or aspiring to address these defects much sooner and prior to them reaching that extent. However, in direct response to your question, there is also a percentage of defects within a given space, particularly on the gravel road network. And that was one of the feedback pieces that we had from one of the submissions. So previously we'd identified a number of defects within a 25% of the length. So if over a kilometre, the number of defects over 250 metres. The feedback was that was excessive and unreasonable, and officers probably agreed, and we've pulled that back. So now we're looking at the number of defects over 100 metres, which is achievable from our resourcing perspective. And it is important that we align our capability and ability to address the defects and align that with the number of defects that we can expect in our program. So I think we have taken account of that as a result of the submissions received.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Are there any further questions of Mr. Lucas on this matter? No? Then I'm in search of a motion. The officer's recommendation, in accordance with Section 53 of the Roads Management Act 2004, adopts the Roads Management Plan 2021 to 2025, provided as an attachment in the agenda, and notes that a copy of the road management plan will be placed on Council's website. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Henderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bray. Councillor Henderson, do you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I think that roads, rates and rubbish is very important to our community, and this actually gives us a standard to work by. It is not just the be all and end all, as Mr. Lucas has said in the answer to my question, but it gives some discretion to do some things, but it also lays down some rules. And we've seen in the past where some people get very, very noisy about a small section of road and the council caves in and does it well. This actually takes some of that out of it and adopts a bit of fairness across the Shire, and so that a road can get properly assessed, properly scoped out and done. And I don't think, to a lot of our people, we're used to very good roads in this Shire. I know people are going to say, oh, well, you try it. Well, go and try and drive on some of the other roads in some other parts of the country, and you'll be very pleased to get back into, by and large, you'll be pleased to get back into the Hepburn Shire. It wasn't always like that. When I came onto council, we had scoria on our roads, so they were an absolute, you got mud, brown mud on your car in the winter, and you got dust all through over the countryside in the summer, brown dust. So there's been a hell of a lot of improvement, Madam Mayor, and this sort of a thing gets some surety to it. And look, it does take a lot of work to do this. It is a balance, and I know very well what the intervention levels are on footpaths, and I know the statistics on how many, particularly older women, break a pelvis on footpaths. So, you know, that's why you'll always hear me on about intervention levels, because we've got an ageing population, and what means 25 mil to a young fella like me isn't always the same for someone who's 80 and very unsure on their feet. So I commend it, Madam Mayor. I think it's a sign that we're going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Bray, do you want to speak to the motion? No. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Dryly?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd just briefly like to support Councillor Henderson's comments, and also just to add that it's one of the anomalies of our Shire is that we actually do very well in this area in terms of our roads are very good, and yet we have quite a small population in relation to the number of roads and kilometres we have to service, and it's actually quite a complicated area to get right, and it's really a compliment to our officers and the works involved that we do so well in this area. And also, I get contacted quite a lot around roads and dirt roads and resurfacing, and it's actually reassuring to know that we do have processes in place to correctly identify and to assess which roads are the most appropriate to be attended to in a particular year, and that we do have a good framework in place to manage that, because it is a concern in the community that some roads get serviced ahead of others, and that there's an arbitrary nature to that. And I think that this document goes a long way to allaying those sorts of concerns.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Okay, does anyone wish to speak against the motion? In which I'll put the motion as read. All those in favour raise their hand. Councillor Simpson, Councillor Bray, Councillor Hood, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly and myself. So I declare the motion carried. Thank you. Then there are no other items on the agenda. So just before I declare the meeting closed, I'd like to thank my councillor colleagues for their attendance and consideration tonight. To council officers, there's been quite a large amount of work that's gone into presenting the agenda items for tonight for this special council meeting. It's a significant piece of work determining the budget, and I thank you once again for what you've done. Thank you to Mr. White for live streaming it. It's an opportunity for the community to listen in and to see what's going on. And I thank those community members who have taken the time to watch the live stream and to those who will do so in the coming days. Having said that, I also, whilst I appreciate that that's the opportunity, I also hope that we are able to resume face-to-face meetings in the chamber sooner rather than later, because that will be an indication that some of the things we've addressed or had to deal with over the last 18 months and then again more recently have ended. So Mr. White, so thank you everybody, and Mr. White, you can end the live streaming.
Thank you, Madam.